Okay, so what I want to try and do today as an introductory class is kind of really lay down the foundations as to what I see Pnimiyus HaTorah being able to do for us and why I feel it's so important to enter into Pnimiyus HaTorah. Because there's many ways that a person can come to the inner teachings of Torah. It could be because they want to behold something mystical and magical, some world that is out there above and beyond our lived experience that would fill us with kind of an awareness of God. Some people want to understand the intricacies and the secrets behind the Torah itself, which is also a very noble pursuit. But ultimately, what I have found and what the tzaddikim seem to imply is that in our generation, which is a particularly low generation on the one hand, but an incredibly high generation on the other, low in the sense that we're stuck within certain narrative structures and cultural lenses that other generations didn't have to deal with. Other generations weren't as mired in the mud as we are. And again, I speak only for myself, but I imagine that each person knows what it means to be stuck in the mud. And in spite of our lowly generation, and in spite of the fact that our minds and our hearts have grown dimmer over time, nevertheless, there's something profoundly unique about our generation, which is that because we're of the last generations, and because we are of kind of the most thickened symptom of the grand history of Klal Yisrael, with all of its traumas and all of its building and breaking, we play a remarkably significant role. That Rav Chaim Vital, the main student of the Arizal, asked his Rebbe, he said, Rebbe, how is it possible that we, a lower generation, can do what you, a higher generation, is incapable of doing? How is it possible that if you, the tzaddik, wasn't able to bring redemption, how could it be that me, the Talmud, is going to have the capacity to bring redemption? And the Arizal's response to Rav Chaim Vital was that in spite of the fact that there is a diminishment of mindfulness and heartfulness, nevertheless, in accordance with the intensity and the struggle, the slightest effort that you put in, the slightest effort that we put in, is going to be more valuable and more beautiful in the eyes of God than the great work of previous generations. And Rav Tzadok HaKohen Milublin has a very similar teaching that he repeats over and over. It's specifically because of the smallness and the constriction and the overwhelmingness, the anxiety, the concern, the fear, the stuckness that our generation is remarkably exposed to. That is in and of itself the very reason that we have more of a susceptibility to benefiting from these teachings. That it's not a contradiction. The lower we are, the more necessary these teachings are, and the more necessary it is that we do this work. As the final generation, the only way in which we're going to be able to move through the darkness is with the loftiest levels of light. Previous generations, where they weren't stuck in so much darkness, so the basic dosages of light were enough to kind of keep a person connected to God. But in accordance with the growing darkness that a person experiences, which is the process of history and exile, we need stronger and stronger medicines to pull us out of our stuckness. And it's for that reason that we have the right and the ability to be studying Pnimiyus HaTorah. To come at Pnimiyus HaTorah, to come at the inner teachings of Torah from a perspective of deservedness is a very difficult thing. Because already Rav Chaim Vital, the main student of the Arizal, writes 30 or 40 principles that must be adhered to prior to a person entering into the inner teachings of Torah, especially Kabbalah. Part of that is hyper-centralized around Kedusha and Tahara, purity and holiness, self-refinement, the refinement of character traits. Anger for the Mekubalim was like, if you had anger, you had no place entering into the base medrash to learn the secrets of Torah. That was a general one, gaiva, kas, all of these things. And so that keeps us stuck. We want Pnimiyus HaTorah, but we're undeserving of Pnimiyus HaTorah. So what the tzaddikim have revealed for us is that there's another way of becoming a recipient of Pnimiyus HaTorah. It's not being deserving of Pnimiyus HaTorah, but it's rather needing it. It's the urgency in which we need this medicine in order to allow us to function properly in Avodas Hashem. We're not coming to try and be mekubalim. We're not coming to try and understand how to create magic or have the intentions of the tzaddikim, even though this is the gateway to that also. But first and foremost, when a person enters into Pnimiyus HaTorah, it has to be with the posture of, I need this for the medicine of my soul. When a person has the urgency of needing to be healed, of needing the light of spirituality to enter into those difficult, darker places of ourselves to give us the ability to see Hashem and to live with Hashem, that opens up a locked gate and it says, okay, you are also worthy of Pnimiyus HaTorah. And so that's typically where I'm coming from. I'm coming from the perspective that the reason we are Zohar to have so much Pnimiyus HaTorah revealed to us in such a clarified way is because we're more in need of it. We're in need of it. We need the medicinal salve of Pnimiyus HaTorah. What is it? What is it that Pnimiyus HaTorah offers? What's the medicine that it offers? The medicine that it ultimately offers can be summarized into one word, which is emunah. That Pnimiyus HaTorah, when all is said and done, after all of the complications and all of the differentiated sugyos and topics, and the wondrous nature of Pnimiyus HaTorah, in the end of the day, it's coming to teach a simple thing, which is the ability for a Jew to continue to have emunah in this world. Emunah is not simply registering that I believe that God is these 13 principles of faith, but emunah is cultivating an inner mindset, an inner posture, where whatever I'm going through, however I'm going through it, wherever I'm going through it, Hashem is with me. The more and more I become aware of divine presence, of divine unity, I'm able to find Hashem wherever I find myself. And when I'm able to tap into emunah, which is the belief that Hashem is here with me right now, in spite of the fact that I can't see him, touch him, smell him, measure him, that capacity to self-sacrifice for the sake of believing in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is where the redemptive kind of medicinal value of Pnimiyus HaTorah comes in. It begins to ease a burdened soul. Emunah gives a person the ability to breathe a little bit deeper and to face a world that appears dark with a little bit more Yishuv Hadas. And so Pnimiyus HaTorah, in my mind, is ultimately one thing and one thing alone. It's Chachmas HaEmunah. It's the secret of faith. Rav Kook, Zchus Aleinu, once wrote, he said that there will come a time in exile where the exile will become so thick that the only way to teach the Jewish people about the simplest principles of faith is going to be by utilizing the most nuclear secrets of Pnimiyus HaTorah, which means to say that all of the complications and the terms and the names and the tzaddikim, in the end of the day, it's very simple. It's coming to teach us over and over and over again that we're with Hashem wherever we are. Over and over and over again, revealing to us the comforting light of emunah and the playfulness of emunah. So that, in that sense, Pnimiyus HaTorah is available to each and every person. If a person comes into Pnimiyus HaTorah from a position of deservedness or uprightness, or feeling that I finished the rest of the Torah and now it's time for me as a tzaddik to enter into Pnimiyus HaTorah, in my humble opinion, that's not going to have the impact on the person that we're seeking. Person will then learn the writings of the Arizal just like they're learning the Rishonim in a Sugya and Shas. And that's a mitzvah of Kiyum Talmud Torah, but it's not a mitzvah of Tchias HaMesim. Tchias HaMesim, the revival of the dead, is when I come to Hashem and I say, Rabbeinu Shalom. Right now, the Sugya and Gemara is not strong enough to shake me out of this feeling of desire or want or longing that I don't know how to answer. The Chumash and Rashi, for whatever reason, because of the thickness of my soul, it's not enough to break me out of the tendency towards sadness today, or the struggle I'm going through with my child or spouse or whatever it is. But Pnimiyus HaTorah is of such nuclear potency because it speaks so revealedly about God. That's sometimes the only thing that's going to give us exactly what we need, which is the recognition that Hashem is with me. And so when we look at Pnimiyus HaTorah as medicine, as something that's coming to heal us from the conditions of exile, to bring more joy, to bring more faith, to bring more calmness and well-being, to cultivate a sense of enoughness rather than scarcity, so then Pnimiyus HaTorah becomes something that's accessible to all people. Now, this notion that Pnimiyus HaTorah is revealed specifically in accordance with the lower generations is not something that we're creating now. It's not a new narrative. This is already what the real Talmidim of the Arizal wrote. That they said, I'm the one coming to reveal the teachings of Torah, not because I'm deserving, but because of the thickness of concealment that I find living in. And in that place, we need to call upon the deepest lights imaginable in the hopes that we can spark some light in our day-to-day lives. The revelation of the Zohar, the revelation of the writings of the Arizal, all of this can be seen as post-traumatic revelations. That when Klal Yisrael finds themselves in dire straits, and it's very, very difficult to figure out how to move forward, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals a new secretion, a new expression of Pnimiyus HaTorah. Another potent light that tells us no matter what, and no matter which way we look at it, that one thing and one thing alone, which is that Hashem is with me and I'm okay. The light of Pnimiyus HaTorah is reminding us that we're okay. And so this is my posture when it comes to the inner teachings of Torah, that when we come to it as medicine, and it doesn't matter what the symptom is, even the slightest symptom is enough to want relief. If I'm struggling with anxiety, with fear, with sadness, with overwhelmingness, with listlessness, with spiritual boredom, forgetting about the bren, the fire that's meant to illuminate my life and reveal to me that to be alive is the greatest, greatest opportunity imaginable, that's what Pnimiyus HaTorah awakens within the person. And it's there to enable us to face another day with more equanimity, with more calmness, not to be overwhelmed or, God forbid, sad or hopeless. And so the way I see Pnimiyus HaTorah, as we're going to discuss it, is really like the development of a medicine. Each and every tzaddik and the various generations in which Pnimiyus HaTorah have been revealed, if we look at it in a metaphorical way of the development of a medicine, so then we'll be able to get just a larger picture of the historical background of the unfolding process of Pnimiyus HaTorah, and it will eventually lead us to understanding the role that we play. So that's what I want to try and do today. I want to try and give a brief overview, a brief historical overview, an overgeneralization of the history of Pnimiyus HaTorah, but to give us a sense as to how the medicine that we're trying to tap into, how the well-being that we're trying to tap into, how it actually developed. So first and foremost, Rav Yitzchak Maya Morgenstern Shlita says as follows, that at first HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim ve'es ha'aretz. And then suddenly, after Hashem creates this beautiful thing, which theoretically, if God creates it, it should really last a nice long time, we're suddenly hit in the face with the second pasuk, which is V'ha'aretz ha'isa tohu v'vohu v'choshech al pnei tahom v'ruach Elokim merachepes al pnei hamayim. That right after Hashem creates the world, we're suddenly thrown into the very stark reality that this world is tohu vohu choshech al pnei tahom. That when you enter into this world, it's going to be a confusing, bewildering, darkening space. Why? That's where Hashem wants to be revealed. Hashem could have done it in many different ways, but this is how he created the world. Where there's tohu, there's confusion, there's bewilderment. As Rashi says, what does tohu mean? It means that a person looks out onto reality and they're mithameh al hatohu shabo, they're bewildered by how chaotic it all seems. Bohu is where a person looks out onto the world and they say, what is this? What is going on here? I don't know what the core of reality is. And after that stage of initial confusion, confusion of the mind, confusion of the heart, then comes the overwhelming sense of v'choshech al pnei tahom. There's darkness that hovers over this abysmal thing. And that's the first encounter. A person has to be in this world. We have to recognize that Hashem created us as deficient creatures. We're not perfect. We're imperfect by design. And what that means is that we are exposed to reality, and it creates a sense of tohu, vohu, and choshech al pnei tahom. And only then, once a person is able to lean into that, of tohu, it's confusing, vohu, it's bewildering, and choshech al pnei tahom, it's overwhelming, only then can we access the ruach elokim merachepes al pnei hamayim, which Rashi says is the ruach of Mashiach Tzidkenu. The Ruach of Mashiach Tzidkenu, which touches and doesn't touch reality. It's present and not present. It hides and reveals itself at once. So the first thing we have to do is enter into the constriction, be aware of constriction, feel the need for medicine, feel the need for healing, feel the need for the restoration of the soul. And only then can the light of Mashiach Tzidkenu be revealed in our minds. And the light of Mashiach Tzidkenu is the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah. So we see already that by design, the process in which Pnimiyus HaTorah is revealed is first and foremost acknowledging that I am urgent in this world without it, that I don't know which way to turn or which way is up and which way is down, without the innermost light of Hashem revealing himself. And only when I feel that struggle for a moment and I'm aware of the symptoms, only then does the Ruach Elokim Merachepes al Panei Hamayim arrive. It's very much like somebody who wants to use medicine to heal a certain issue. Now, if a person doesn't feel that there's anything missing, if a person doesn't feel that there's any struggle, if a person feels that this world is exactly the way it needs to be and everything is just jolly and wonderful, so in a person like that, when they're exposed to medicine, the first question is going to be, what purpose is there in this? I don't need this. I'm healthy. Why would I need this? Why do I need to know about what's going on in the inner recesses of reality? What do I need to know more than the pshat level? I'm healthy with the pshat level. So if a person doesn't acknowledge their need for healing, then the words of Pnimiyus HaTorah are not going to hit in the proper way, because then it's just going to be stam information. And information is valuable, but it doesn't provide any fixing. It's only when I come into Pnimiyus HaTorah with the sense that Ribbono Shel Olam, I'm in a shtickle level of pain here. The pain doesn't have to be extreme. The pain doesn't have to be gratuitous. But any of us that walk around with an annoying sense of anxiety, disrest at the core of our hearts, questioning the love, questioning the sense of connectivity, wondering about whether this is real or this is not real. Anybody who's ever acknowledged any of those thoughts that flow through the mind or the heart, that's enough of an impetus for a person to say, Ribbono Shel Olam, I need your medicine. I need the medicine because I'm in this world to think about you, and I'm in this world to know about you, and I'm in this world to live with you, and I'm in this world to allow you to live through me. And so any sense of difficulty awakens within a person a desire to run directly into Pnimiyus HaTorah. And if you come with your pain, if you bring your pain or your struggle into Pnimiyus HaTorah will meet you, and it will begin to offer answers up to the pain. It begins to offer a medicinal salve to the issues that each and every person is experiencing. If you don't come with pain, if you don't come with the struggle, then you have no vessel in which to receive the light of Torah. This is kind of sedimented in a teaching, one of the teachings that I cherish most deeply, from the Mittler Rebbe of Chabad. The Mittler Rebbe of Dov Ber Shnuri, who is the son of the Baal HaTanya. He quotes in two places. He says, Shamati me avi, I heard from my father. Shashama me rabo, that he heard from the Maggid of Mezrich. And he says as follows, that ein mi sheyachol lahaven es razin da Arizal la'omkan ula'amisasam, ela mi sheyesh lo hamara shchira hativis hamushrash bo menuurav hanikrat sabrachenkeit, ulachein kasuv, b'meseches chagiga she'ein moisen meisen merkava ela lemi shelibo doig bekirbo. That the Mittler Rebbe says in the name of his father and the name of his teacher, that it is impossible for anybody to properly receive the innermost quality of Pnimiyus HaTorah in its depth and in its truthful form, other than those who have a natural tendency towards a certain despondency, towards a certain embitterment in this world, which becomes the vessel to receive Pnimiyus HaTorah. As Chazal describe in Maseches Chagiga, that Ma'aseh Merkava, the secrets of the chariot, Hashem's presence in this world, are only revealed to someone whose heart is worried within them. That the prerequisite for Pnimiyus HaTorah to do its job is an anxious heart. And again, we don't have to come into diagnostics. Anytime a Yid feels even the slightest pinch of anxiety, it's enough for us to tear the world asunder and to demand that Hashem reveal himself. But for that, we have to learn Rabbi Nachman a lot to understand that the neshama should never be in a position of pain. We should always be aware of Hashem. In the moment we're in pain because of the absence of God in our lives, it's enough for us to tear the entire existence asunder and to say, Hashem, where are you? This is not what it's meant to be like. And so when it comes to Pnimiyus HaTorah, we have to bring our stuff. We have to come and say, Hashem, the tefillah before Pnimiyus HaTorah is Rebbeinu Shalom, help me. I need help in this world. I don't want to be a mukobel. I don't want to even be a Talmid Chacham. I just want you to draw down the light of healing into my life. And in that way, a person truly becomes a vessel that is worthy of receiving the lights of Torah. Because it's only an empty vessel that is capable of receiving light. A vessel that's full of itself, there's no place for the light to go. This touches upon what the Kotzker Rebbe famously said, that there's nothing more whole than a broken heart. The brokenheartedness itself is not whole. We're not in this world to feel bitter. But the brokenheartedness is the vessel in which a person is now prepared to receive the insight from above that's going to cause them to feel comfort. So this Ruach Elokim Merachepes al Pnei Hamayim, this light of Mashiach Tzidkenu, a light from the future, this is what Pnimiyus HaTorah is. Because in the future, everything is going to be revealed. Hashem reveals himself in the future. Hashem reveals to each and every Yid what was going on in their lives. Rabbi Nosson of Nimerov writes that in the future, Mashiach is going to sit with each and every person and go through the narrative structure of their lives and point out each and every place where Hashem was hidden in that place, and each person will receive their own Megillah. Each person is going to receive their own Megillah to reveal to us how everything was all right and how Hashem was always there. And had I only let go and let God, then I would have been okay. But that's a light that's only revealed in the future. What Pnimiyus HaTorah was, in its various iterations and forms, was that light of the future being secreted and revealed within the present nature of reality, even prior to the future. Pnimiyus HaTorah, in all of its forms, is the light of the future that is not yet present, that somehow, some way, HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows it to drip into a current moment in history so that we enable ourselves to live with the knowledge of what the future will reveal, even though we're still in exile. L'dugma, if in the future we're told that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reveal himself in such a way that each and every person will be able to behold the divine presence from within their own mind and their own heart and their own two eyes, and that's something that's reserved for the future, Pnimiyus HaTorah came along to reveal that even though that's only really going to be revealed in the future, if you're able to draw it down into the present moment consciousness, even though the future has not yet arrived, you can still live with the comfort of the future in the present moment. That is the light of Mashiach in Galus. That is the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah. Yeah, Chaim.
There are types of medicines that one could take which mask the symptoms and just get you through, and the body naturally will heal itself. And then there's medicines you take which actually fix the. There's actually a doctor in this chat, so he could say it more articulately. But what are we talking about here in terms of the Pnimiyus HaTorah? So is it the former or the latter, or is it both?
It's both, and that's what we're going to go into right now. We're going to show the historical development of this medicine, and how over time, the thicker concealment gets, the more and more potent the medicine of Pnimiyus HaTorah is. So we're going to talk about basically 5 stages of the development of this medicine, the medicine of faith. And we're going to see how each and every generation developed the medicine in such a way that it would attend to the particular needs of the generation. And the lower we get, the thicker the symptoms are, and the more beneficial that medicine is going to become. In terms of whether Pnimiyus HaTorah heals the symptom or just gives a person the ability to tolerate the symptoms of this worldliness, is going to depend on which stage in the unfolding process of Pnimiyus HaTorah we're holding by. And so I want to come back to your question afterwards to see if it's been answered. So the first stage of the Torah was through Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is the Rebbe of all things. And tradition tells us that in addition to Niglos HaTorah that Moshe Rabbeinu received at Har Sinai, there was also an internalized expression of the Torah being revealed, which was Pnimiyus HaTorah, Sisrei Torah, the secrets of Torah. Even though the revealed Matan Torah was only the revealed nature of the Torah, Chamishe Chomshei Torah, And we also know that Kol Mash Talmud Mitchadesh is also going to be contained within what Moshe Rabbeinu received. Moshe Rabbeinu explicitly received the entire body of Niglos HaTorah, Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh. But what the Bris Menucha points out and what the Ramchal points out to us is that at the very same moment, hidden within that package of the revealed Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu received Pnimiyus HaTorah. Pnimiyus HaTorah, the innermost quality of Torah. And what was that Nakuda that Moshe Rabbeinu received in Pnimiyus HaTorah that wasn't revealed yet? Pnimiyus HaTorah was Moshe Rabbeinu understanding that no matter what the Jewish people were going through, no matter what the Jewish people were doing, no matter what they were struggling with, no matter how bleak it seemed, in the end of the day, there was a point of goodness at the heart of Klal Yisrael that enabled Moshe Rabbeinu to say to Hashem, they're good and you can't punish them. They're good and you can't punish them. Pnimiyus HaTorah is revealing to us that what you see on the outside is not all that there is, and that there's an inner story going on. And the inner story that Moshe Rabbeinu received was the godless of Nishmas Yisrael. The purpose of creation, the purpose of all of the Torah is to teach us this alone. The power of Nishmas Yisrael, the fact that as low as we feel, and as stuck as we sometimes feel, and as struggling as we sometimes are, it's only by dint of the fact that we have forgotten the profoundly spiritual place in which we come from. That neshama shenasata bi tahoirahi, that the soul of the Jewish person, no matter where it is purified and a shining light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was the Pnimiyus HaTorah that Moshe Rabbeinu received. But the only way that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to reveal this light of Klal Yisrael being righteous and pure and good and connected and deserving and loved and attached, the way in which Moshe Rabbeinu revealed this was always when Klal Yisrael were under attack by behaviors that they've done. Klal Yisrael messed up. Klal Yisrael built an Egel Azav. Klal Yisrael complained. Klal Yisrael did all of these things. And when push came to shove, when there was like a rock bottom moment, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to uncover the innermost light of Pnimiyus HaTorah, which is the Shorosh of Nishmas Yisrael. In Rabbi Nachman's language, it's Me'ayin Heim Lekuchim. That Moshe Rabbeinu's light was to reveal to Klal Yisrael where they come from. The revelation that the entire purpose of creation is for Nishmas Yisrael. But that sense of well-being, that sense of calmness, that sense of goodness and all-rightness that rested at the core of all of the struggles, it wasn't revealed all the time. Moshe Rabbeinu revealed that only in moments of stress, only in moments of difficulty. So the first secretion of Pnimiyus HaTorah was the revelation that Nishmas Yisrael, that the soul of the Jewish people is always tahor, that the entire purpose of creation is for the Jewish soul, and that the entire purpose of Hashem deciding to enter into reality, so to speak, is only because Hashem anticipated the pleasure that he would receive when we serve him. Not when we serve him from places of revelation, but dafka when we serve him from places of concealment. That was the medicine of Moshe Rabbeinu. Then came along, a number of generations later, the next stage of the unfolding process of Pnimiyus HaTorah, which is the light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Now, the light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is taking the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is just psukim. The psukim don't necessarily talk about Pnimiyus. The psukim talk about laws, and they talk about judgment, and they talk about punishments. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai came and revealed the light of the Zohar HaKadosh. And the light of the Zohar HaKadosh, which comes from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's process in the cave, was the recognition that the Jewish people are now in exile, and it's becoming so easy for them to forget about how powerful they are and how good they are and how righteous they are and how beloved they are by God. We're not talking about only the collective, we're talking about each and every person in their own hearts. That there was a hara'ah sha'a, there was a permission granted when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, Eis la'asos la'Hashem meferu sarasecha. It's time to reveal the innermost quality of the jewel of the king's crown, which is the light of Nishmas Yisrael. That's what Pnimiyus HaTorah comes to show. And in order to do this, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had to go into the cave, and he went through what he went through until he came out and he revealed the innermost quality of the Torah, how each pasuk in the Torah is a love song to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every pasuk in the Torah, no matter how halachic, no matter how legalistic, no matter how punishment-oriented, no matter how strange, was shown through the lens of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his Chaverov in the Zohar HaKadosh to be a love song between Klal Yisrael and the Neshama. That every piece of Torah, every pasuk that the Chevraya entered into, one or two steps in, they would come to realize that Hashem is everything and He loves Nishmas Yisrael more than anything. So what the Zohar HaKadosh was, it took Torah's Moshe, which externally seems to be Niglos HaTorah, the external nature of Torah, and he showed the inner quality, how each pasuk is a love song, and each pasuk is coming to remind us that we can be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we are close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai famously said that up until me, the matter of the relationship between self and other, between self and God, was dependent upon fear. That Shama Biyira Hayatalui. It was dependent on fear of distance, of hierarchy. He says, but Aval Anan, but by us, B'chavivusa Talya Milsa. The matter is now dependent on love. Pnimiyus HaTorah is the revelation of Hashem's love for Nishmas Yisrael and the revelation of Nishmas Yisrael's love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The more we focus on the external symptoms of our relationship with Hashem and other people, we begin to look at the world from fragmentation and separation, as if there's 1,000 different things that we care about, as if there's 1,000,000 different things that we're bothered by. What Pnimiyus HaTorah does is it reduces it down to the single most core issue, which is that in the end of the day, what a Yid wants is a revelation of Hashem's light in their life. And all a Yid wants to do is to connect to God, to connect to that infinite light of well-being, of calm, of joy, of connectivity, of hashgacha pratis. All of our chataim, all of our addictions, all of our stuckness is because we've come to forget that that's the one thing that we want so desperately. If a person isn't aware of that, all I need is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all I need is the light of all rightness to descend down into my mind with a moment of emunah, and that would solve everything. Instead, we find ourselves searching after all sorts of externalized forms of healing because we forget what the core issue is. The core issue is distance from God. Forgetting that we're okay, forgetting that we're all right, forgetting that, in fact, we're doing exactly what we need to do in spite of appearances. But the Zohar HaKadosh still was only the beginning of the revelation of the medicine. Moshe Rabbeinu received the medicine, which is that Klal Yisrael is the most beautiful thing in the world. And then Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai came along and he said, you know what, it's not enough for Moshe Rabbeinu to reveal this in moments of stress. Every pasuk has to reveal this. Every pasuk has to be the redemptive notion that Hashem is with me. But that was still concealed because the Zohar HaKadosh, as much as it reveals the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as much as it begins to talk about spiritual worlds beyond our world, it does not provide us with a systematized vision or a structural model or a system that answers up the questions of reality. It's not organized. It wasn't scientific in the Zohar HaKadosh. The Zohar HaKadosh was like a burst of love, but it wasn't yet developed into a real model. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai took this medicine of Moshe Rabbeinu and he said it needs to be revealed more, but it wasn't yet fully revealed in the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Pasuk says by Moshe Rabbeinu, Alisa lamarum v'shivisa shevi lakachta matanos mibnei adam, that you went up to Shemayim. Alisa lamarum shivisa shevi, you retrieved a certain gift that was hidden away, something that was hidden away in stuckness, in shevi. And what is that? Zakta Heliger Ramchal and many tzaddikim, that shevi is Rosh Tevel Shimon Bar Yochai. That Moshe Rabbeinu went up to ensure that eventually the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah would be able to come down even more to Klal Yisrael, and that was the light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. After Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Zohar HaKadosh, and there are particular places in the Zohar is structured around the Parshios. There's also something called Tikkunei Zohar, which are 70 interpretations of the word Bereshis. There's also a section of the Zohar called Raya Mehemna, which is the description of the mitzvos in the Zohar. But there were a few places in the Zohar HaKadosh, in particular the Idra Rabbah, the Idra Zuta, and Safra Ditzniusa, that become the nuclear center of where the Arizal is going to build his system. After the revelation of the medicine on the level of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, where every pasuk was just reminding us that we're okay and that we're loved and that we're good and it's all good, the Arizal comes along. And the Arizal was a thunderbolt of lightning. And he was born in Yerushalayim. And then he went to Mitzrayim, where he lived by his uncle, and he studied under Rav Betzalel Ashkenazi, who was the Shita Mekubetzes. And what the Arizal would do is he would go to a small hut on the banks of the Nile River, where he would be mitboded for the week, and he would learn the Zohar with such intensity until Eliyahu Hanavi revealed himself to him and began explaining new ways of understanding the visions that we had to see from within the Zohar. The Arizal took this light of lights of the Zohar HaKadosh and he made it into a medicine. He said, okay, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is offering us medicine here, but it's not enough. Not everybody could go and wander the hills of Eretz Yisrael like Rabbi Shimon V'Chaverov. We need to make this medicine available for the masses. And the Arizal developed a plant. The Arizal developed a system, a structure. He began to understand what exactly is the Zohar telling us and how does it have an impact in terms of how I live my day-to-day life. Something more than just imagining that Hashem is with me at all times. The Arizal wanted to understand, how is this true and how is it real? Because for the Arizal, he looked at reality. He said, I'm in a world, and in a world there's pain, there's struggle, there's sin, there's falling, there's concealment, there's constriction, there's trauma, there's breakdowns. And the Arizal wanted to understand, how exactly is it that the light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai can apply itself in a world of changes and modern reality and difficult reality? And what the Arizal was able to be masig, through his Ruach HaKodesh, which some poskim even define as a level of Nevuah L'Doros, the Arizal gave us a system. He defined for us what exactly was taking place. He explained to us how we can find that infinite light of Hashem in this world itself, and how all of the light and the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is readily available for us to tap into. But the Arizal still was only talking mitzad ha'elyon. The Arizal was only talking mitzad shamayim. The Arizal came to teach us that when you see the broken down nature of reality, don't only look at the symptom, but be aware that at the core of it, there's light and there's worlds upon worlds, and there's lofty spiritual levels behind this lowly level. And if you try and meditate enough or connect yourself enough or develop intentionality enough through kavanot and through being a Kabbalist, then every experience in your life, no matter how struggle-oriented it is, will take on a certain spiritual meaning. So, for example, the Arizal said, oh, you're stuck in a trauma. That trauma is not your trauma. That trauma is the trauma of the shattering of the vessels, which created existence in a broken way. And now it's your job to elevate the sparks and clarify the sparks. And when all sparks are clarified, then Mashiach is going to come. It was still a very cosmic model. The Arizal gave us a cosmic model. He taught us how to bring ourselves up from this lowly world and attach ourselves to Shamayim in the hopes of forgetting this worldliness, in the hopes of running away from the pain of this world. So the Arizal taught us how we would be able to see the light of Hashem if we attach ourselves up to the heavens. But that wasn't enough. That's not enough of a medicine for a nation that finds itself stuck in this world. And so around the 1700s, there was a remarkable explosion of revelation that took place. And this Nahar of the Arizal that was Yotzei Megan Eden, this river that flowed forth from Gan Eden, which reminded us about how Hashem is everywhere, Pasuk says it splits into 4 heads. And in the 1700s, there were 4 heads that received the light of the Arizal and began describing it in new ways for Klal Yisrael to be able to receive. The neshamos of these tzaddikim that arrived at around the same time were first and foremost Rav Shalom Sharabi, who was the Rashash, the father of Svardi Kabbalah. There was Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal, Italian Kabbalah. There was Rav Eliyahu Kramer, the Vilna Gaon, Lithuanian Kabbalah. And there was the Heilige Baal Shem Tov, Rav Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, the birth of Hasidus. Now, these four rivers that came forth from Gan Eden were now the final form in which the medicine that Moshe Rabbeinu developed and that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai developed and that the Arizal decided need to be manufactured for each and every person. We have to be able to tap into infinitude and to realize that everything is okay at its core. So these four rivers bring it down into new ways. The Rashash showed us on a simple level how when you're reading Tefillah, and when you're reading words of Tefillah, each and every word of Tefillah that you're encountering is in fact a meditation and a point of contact with Hashem's infinite light. So the daily process of Avodas Hashem for the Rashash became intentional. That a Yid would make a bracha, and instead of just making a bracha, in those short few words of Baruch Ata Hashem, the Rashash has 100 pages of Matbeya bracha, and when I say the word Baruch, I'm drawing down from the loftiest places of infinitude. And when I say Ata, I'm drawing it down to a place of relationality where I can turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and speak to him in first person. And when I say Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, I'm having the intentionality of giving myself over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'mesiras nefesh in order to reveal his light. And then when I finalize the bracha, I'm able to transform every moment in my life into an encounter with godliness. The Ramchal came along and he taught us how all of history, all of experience, all of the ups and downs of Nishmas Yisrael, all of the exile, all of the stuckness, all of that is just revelatory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. Hashem is speaking to us through each and every way in our lives. Every moment of history, all of the difficult processes of exile and redemption, they're all meeting points with Hashem. The Vilna Gaon came along and revealed how within the Torah itself, within Torah Sheba'al Peh, within Agadata, within Ramazim, you're going to find the blinding light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All three of those schools drew the medicine down even deeper, but they hadn't yet changed the medicine. They said, we have to know how to find Hashem's light in our lives. We have to know that at the core of all things, we're connected to Hashem. That's always been the medicine. To realize that I am connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and at the core, I am all right. And the symptoms that emerge afterwards are not the original issue, but they're issues that come about after I realize that I'm all right. But it wasn't until the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, Rav Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, where he decided that something new has to happen here. The light of the Arizal and the interpretations of the Arizal are very good and very beautiful, and they have the ability of transforming a person's Torah learning into a place of encountering Hashem, but it doesn't go as far as it needs to go. It doesn't address the needs of the nation. And the Baal Shem Tov, after the trauma of Shabtai Tzvi, came along and he said, what we need to do is we need to develop a new way in which the deepest secrets of Kabbalah, the deepest secrets of divine unity, the deepest secrets of the fact that ultimately all of existence is rooted in absolute divine nothingness, and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is present with us in each and every moment, these secrets can no longer be relegated to the intellectual site of Jewish experience, but it has to be revealed in the lived experience of each and every Yid. The Baal Shem Tov, instead of the Arizal who took us from this world and brought us up to Shamayim, the Baal Shem Tov brought Shamayim down into our world. May Basari Echazeh, from within my flesh, I'm going to experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That means that for the Baal Shem Tov, the medicine has to be so potent and so available that you don't need prescriptions anymore. You don't need doctors to give it to you. You are your own pharmacist. You are the one who gets to walk around and to connect to the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A deep awareness, an unwavering awareness of Ein Od Milvado. That in the end of the day, the core of all reality is divine revelation. That what I experience in my day-to-day life, the ups and the downs, the need to eat and the need to drink and the need to work and the need to be human. In the position of the Arizal, those things were fine, but I still needed to run up to Shamayim. For the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, Shamayim was brought down to exactly where we are. It wasn't taking the Tachtonim and bringing them up to the Elyonim. It was taking the Elyonim and bringing it down to the Tachtonim. So that by walking, by talking, by eating, by being, if I could contemplate godliness, if I can be aware of the fact that Zistoch al Tzevel Avolam Einon Milvado, then immediately Yispardu Kopalayav, and all of the pain, all of the struggle, all of the symptoms of feeling distant from God, they suddenly go away. That was the light of the Baal Shem Tov, to teach us that the work of Kabbalah and Pnimiyus HaTorah, and the terms and the phrases which will continue to go through Be'ezras Hashem, they're not meant to take us out of this world and bring us up to Shamayim. The opposite is true. They're meant to draw Shamayim down into this world so that we can serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the flesh. So that we stop saying, if only this, if only that, if only then I would be close to Hashem. The Baal Shem Tov says, stop it. Exactly where you are, exactly as you are, exactly how you are, is the place in which Hashem is revealing himself. And then, what the Baal Shem Tov does is once he draws this medicine down into a real viable option, that it has to be available for each and every person. So the Baal Shem Tov had a student named the Magid who opened up a pharmacist school. He opened up a school for pharmacists. Each and every one of the Talmidim of the Magid had a specific thing. Rav Zusha was the one who was able to reveal to you light when you felt low. The Rebbe of Melech was able to reveal to you how great your soul was. The Choyze Melablin was able to remind you how everything was ultimately for the good. Rav Shmuel Shmelka was able to reveal to you that everything is part of the Torah. The Kedushas Levi was able to reveal how everything is part of the greatness of Nishmas Yisrael, etc., etc. Then came along the Baal HaTanya, who really becomes the finalized version of the Maggid's teachings, which is that each and every Yid can contemplate godliness. And then, in my opinion, the final form of the medicine, which is where a person is able to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu in each and every part of their lives, in their own most vulnerability, is the secret of what Rabbi Nachman is revealing to us. And so for today, what I wanted to show is ultimately the slow and steady process in which Pnimiyus HaTorah becomes something that is revealed generation after generation, to the point that it becomes something that is accessible and ready at hand for each and every one of us to call upon. And the need to cultivate a deep relationship with these ideas and a deep connection to these ideas becomes more and more urgent, because when Mashiach comes, he's going to speak in this language, and it's our generation that's going to have the greatest possibility of understanding him, because we were the ones who had to internalize these ideas most intensely. And so Be'ezras Hashem, what I hope to do in the next coming weeks that we get the Fabring in, is we're going to go through some basic principles in Pnimiyus HaTorah, generalized sugyos that are connected to the parsha or the time that we find ourselves in, and most importantly, to ensure that the words of the tzaddikim themselves can have an impact on the way that we function. And in that way, we become the vessel that holds the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah. We become the vessel of HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealing his Torah down here. We're not deserving of it, but we need it. And when we realize that we need it, then we're something even more deserving than it. Then we become the vehicles that carry out Pnimiyus HaTorah. And Be'ezras Hashem, we should be zocheh to grow together, to be able to uncover the potent medicines that these tzaddikim have for us, and to live with them. Because life can be lived in one of two ways. Life can be lived as painful struggle and disorientation and isolation and alienation, or life can be lived with a sense of connectivity and all rightness. It doesn't change what happens in a person's life. Life is life. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has hashgacha pratis for each and every person, and we should be blessed that not one person has to go through another ounce of pain in their entire lives. But Pnimiyus HaTorah doesn't say, Hashem, I don't want any more of the negativity. That's up to Hashem. We could daven. But Pnimiyus HaTorah says, Hashem, whatever you send my way, I'm going to be able to see the silver lining in it. I'm going to be able to see the light of your name that's shining forth through all things. That's the light of the Heilige Baal Shem Tov that traces itself back to the light of the Ari, which is rooted in the light of Rashbi, which is rooted in the light of Moshe Rabbeinu. And we're all Moshe Rabbeinu. Nishmas Yisrael is Moshe Rabbeinu. So Be'ezras Hashem, I'm looking forward to bringing with you guys. And again, any questions or comments, we'll develop a way. I'll talk to Rabbi Yeshua how questions can be asked so that we can answer them as the weeks kind of converge. But I'm going to send this recording, and I'll also send kind of a summary of it. Be'ezras Hashem, we'll go into more next week, God willing.